Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I lost my connection. I had to reboot.
What's in your pan?
So right now it's just sausage and onions.
We
Have you taken your bacon out? Take your bacon out of the pan and then add your onions so they can cook in the fat that rendered from the bacon. There you go. Now, once your onions are cooking, once they've cooked for about 3 minutes, then you can add your garlic. So we'll give your onions a good 3 minutes and stir them around a bit, and then add your garlic to the onions. And let's get your kale ready to go into the pot. So if you whatever fresh green you're using, it could be kale, spinach, or Swiss chard. You want to cut it so that it is sliced into small ribbons. You want fairly thin strips of the vegetable so that they cook quickly and they get tender in the soup. And once it's all cut up, if you pack it down, it'll be about a cup or a cup and a half, unless you really, really like green vegetables, and then you can put as much as you want in there. But we're looking for a balance between the beans and the greens. So they should be about the same amount. So we'll slice those into strips. And then once you have a good pile of strips, you can kind of switch your pile 90 degrees and then slice down so that your strips get cut into shorter pieces.
Hi, your voice seems very what do you call it?
What?
Quiet than usual. Would it be possible to?
Maybe let me switch my computer a little closer. Yeah. That's better for you. Okay. Is that better? Can you hear me better? Okay. Sorry about that. So once you've got your kale cut into strips, just run your knife over it again to cut those strips in half or in quarters so they're not terribly long. It's not an exact science. You just want something that will not trail off your spoon when you're eating your soup. Okay, so once your onions have cooked for a while, let's get the garlic in with the onions. And then give that a stir. Let that garlic cook for, we'll give it like 2 minutes, and then we'll add the kale to the pot. We don't want the garlic to burn because burnt garlic tastes bitter. So we do want it to saute a bit for just a minute or two until you can smell it. Once you can smell the garlic, go ahead and add your green vegetables, and we'll saute them in the pot as well. And when they turn like a nice emerald green color, we'll add the rest of the ingredients. So it only takes a few minutes for the kale to cook and turn a beautiful green, beautiful shade of green. I'm just gonna throw all of this in here. Because I have a little bit left, but it doesn't make sense not to just throw it all in the pot. There we go. Okay, so stir your kale around with the onions and garlic. And you'll notice the color change. It'll cook down a bit and get this beautiful dark emerald green color. All right, now we can add our beans that are already drained. They go right in. And we can add some dry seasonings. If you have onion powder and garlic powder, you may want to add about a half teaspoon of each. Yeah. So just a half teaspoon of garlic powder and a half teaspoon of onion powder. Now we have fresh onions and we have fresh garlic, but onion powder and garlic powder have a warmer, sweeter flavor profile. So it will complement the fresh onion and the fresh garlic. We're just gonna complement those flavors by adding the powders. And you can even go up to a full teaspoon with the onion powder if you want to, not the garlic powder. So the dry spices are in. Let's stir them around so they can toast up for a minute before we add the chicken broth. Toasting those spices for just a minute or two activates the volatile oils. It enhances the flavor that's in there. If we just put them in there and then added a liquid, they wouldn't get the minute to toast and kind of bolden up their flavors. It's always good to toast your dry spices before adding a liquid. And there's enough fat in the pan that allows them to do that. Okay. At this point, your beans can go in. And then you may add either broth or stock or bouillon. And if you do add bouillon, you'll need to add about 2 quarts of water to reconstitute that. And we're gonna want it to come up just under a boil.
Sorry, what's the 2/4 of water?
If you're using bouillon, you'll need about 32 ounces.
32 ounces. Is that ounce? 32?
That should be about 4 cups.
4 cups. Oh, okay.
Yes, and then we're gonna wanna turn the heat up just a bit because we do want this to come up to almost a boil. And before we add salt, we want to make sure your bouillon is completely dissolved, and you'll taste your broth to see if it needs additional salt. It may not. I often find in using this chicken broth that I get at the store, it says it's low sodium, but I never need to add salt when I use it. So it has a lot of salt in it. I am, however, going to go ahead and add my black pepper. I'm going to grind some fresh pepper in there. So the two things you should have left at this point are some salt, just in case. May not need it. Some cream, and your bacon. So you can give that a stir with a spoon to help it dissolve. And then once it's dissolved, go ahead and pour it in your soup, your pot. So I've turned the temperature up so that it's getting good and hot. And this soup, if it has a chance to cook for a long time, or if you reheat any leftovers tomorrow, it will be thicker because the starch from the beans will have seeped out into the soup. As it stands right now, it's not going to be a very thick soup, but it will thicken up if it cooks for a while because of the beans. So mine is starting to simmer. Gonna let it cook a little longer till I actually see the bubbles. I want to see little simmering bubbles. And then at the very end, once your soup has come up to a simmer, at the very end, you'll stir in your cream. You don't want it to go into a boiling hot pot because the cream will break, or it could break. It doesn't always. And then you just want to heat it through once the cream goes in.
Why isn't it working?
If you like spice, you could put in a pinch of crushed red pepper flake or cayenne pepper to add some spice to the soup, if you like it hot. So I'm almost at a simmer. I'm going to taste the broth to see if it needs any additional seasoning. So be sure you taste your broth, because now would be the time if you want to add more salt or pepper or garlic or onion, you could do that. What do you think? Is it good? Do you need to adjust it? Good? Okay. And are your greens getting tender? Are they starting to simmer? Good. That's what we want, tender greens. We don't want to boil them until they lose their color though, because that would be cooking all the nutrients out of the greens. So at this point, if you like the way it tastes, oh yeah, add your beans to the pot. Go ahead and add your beans if you haven't already. Yep. and let everything come up to a boil. So I'm at a boil now. I'm going to turn mine off. You can see a lot of steam rising here. So now that I've got my soup to a boil, I'm actually going to take it off of that hot burner. Let it cool down just a bit before I add the cream, because I don't want my cream to break. So I just don't want it boiling when I stir it in. So I'm going to stir it in. And just let that cream heat through. And that's it. So once you get a good simmer going on, you can turn the heat off and stir your cream in. The action of stirring also keeps it from breaking. You kind of gradually temper it in. And that's our white bean, kale, and sausage soup. So for your soup, once you get the cream in, I would recommend you ladle your soup into bowls and then sprinkle your crunchy bacon on top. That way it maintains its texture and it doesn't get soggy. So I would use your bacon almost like a garnish, or like you would do croutons, and put it on top of your soup at the end. I think using bacon was a wonderful idea. I will definitely try that next time. So while the soup is coming together, we also have some time for cleanup. Although I see you've been kind of cleaning as you go, which is always the best thing to do. But we can get our area all cleaned up and ready for our soup. I'm gonna add a little more pepper to mine. Nice job, ladies. And the soup is good on its own, but all soups are really good with nice, fresh, crusty bread. Which unfortunately I am out of, so I'll be eating my soup solo. If you have leftovers, you're going to want to reheat them gently because of the cream. If you bring it to a boil rapidly, it might break. And by break, it gets kind of grainy looking. It won't be smooth and homogeneous anymore. So I'm going to make myself a bowl too. It's lunchtime here. There we go. There's my little bowl of soup, ready to go. Excellent. Great job. Very good. Well, enjoy your soup, ladies. If you want, you can sprinkle a little grated Parmesan cheese on top. That's nice too, if you have any cheese. If not, it'll be good on its own. Perfect. Well, good job. Once you get your bowls poured up, take a picture and send it to me. I'd love to see your finished product. You guys did a great job today, and thanks for joining me. It was nice meeting you. Bye. Bye. See you next time.